Russian shelling of Ukraine's southern region of Kherson overnight killed at least 2 people and injured more than 10, including 2 children and a police officer, the regional governor said on Monday. Oleksandr Prokudin said on Telegram that Russian forces had launched 71 attacks in the past 24 hours that were aimed at the residential districts as well as shops and medical infrastructure, among other establishments. 20 of the air and land attacks targeted the city of Kherson, the region's administrative district, the governor added. Authorities put out a fire caused by shelling early on Monday, he said. The Kremlin said on Monday it believed that fatigue with the Ukraine war would grow in the US and Europe, but that Washington would continue to be directly involved in the conflict. The Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, was commenting on a U.S. Congress decision to pass a stopgap funding bill that omitted aid for Kyiv. A Ukrainian victory in the war with Russia depends on cooperation with the EU, the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelensky, told EU foreign ministers gathered in Kyiv on Monday. Zelensky, who was speaking after the U.S. Congress left Ukraine war aid out of a spending bill, also underlined the importance of defense support for Ukraine during the war, Reuters reports. The EU has proposed a bilateral envelope worth €5 billion for Ukraine's defense as part of the existing European Peace Facility, its chief diplomat, Josep Borrell, said at a press conference in Kyiv after an informal meeting of EU foreign ministers, Lisa O'Carroll reports. Volodymyr Zelensky's 10-point peace plan is the only game in town, the EU's chief diplomat, Josep Borrell, has said at a press conference of EU-Ukraine foreign ministers meeting in Kyiv today. The meeting of the EU foreign ministers was sending a strong missile to Russia that we are not intimidated by your missiles or your drones. Ukraine is hoping for membership of the EU within 2 years, but the EU must also take some big decisions before it is ready to accept any new country. The biggest decision, EU diplomats say, will relate to the budget. Allowing a country of Ukraine's size into the bloc will require a vastly increased budget, with many member states expected to go from net beneficiaries to net contributors. Meanwhile, Ukraine's parliament and its speaker taunted Elon Musk on Monday after the billionaire businessman posted a meme on his social media platform mocking the President Volodymyr Zelensky's pleas for wartime assistance from the West. The EU's chief diplomat has rejected suggestions that Ukraine's membership of the bloc could be phased in over a number of years. Speaking in Kyiv after a surprise meeting of the EU foreign ministers, Josep Borrell said membership of the EU was all or nothing, reflecting a growing school of thought among diplomats. The Mexican president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, on Monday panned U.S. military spending on Ukraine as irrational, stepping up criticism of the war effort as he urged Washington to devote more resources to helping Latin American countries. The White House has been in touch with allies and partners about continued funding for Ukraine, and those conversations will continue, the White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre said on Monday. Congress passed a stopgap bill on Saturday that extended government funding for more than a month and avoided a government shutdown, but did not contain any new aid for Ukraine, Reuters reports. The White House has been in touch with allies and partners about continued funding for Ukraine, and those conversations will continue, the White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre said on Monday. Congress passed a stopgap bill on Saturday that extended government funding for more than a month and avoided a government shutdown, but did not contain any new aid for Ukraine, Reuters reports. The Mexican president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, on Monday panned U.S. military spending on Ukraine as irrational, stepping up criticism of the war effort as he urged Washington to devote more resources to helping Latin American countries. López Obrador has long called on the U.S. to devote more funds to helping economic development in Central America and the Caribbean in order to ease migratory pressures. During his regular daily press conference, López Obrador criticized the U.S. Congress for not freeing up money for the region, before making reference to wrangling last week on a stopgap funding bill that stripped out further aid for Ukraine, Reuters reports. The Ukrainian foreign minister said the Kremlin was funneling resources towards creating divisions among Kyiv's allies and urged them to unite in the face of pressure from Russia. Dmytro Kuleba spoke after a historic first meeting of EU foreign ministers beyond the bloc's borders as disagreements over support for Ukraine have grown. Kuleba also called on the EU's support to resume regular export,